The desert wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the beat-up pickup truck as it sped down a lonely Nevada highway. Ellie Harper gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, her heart pounding louder than the engine's roar. She wasn't just driving her boss, Miranda Cole, to a critical business meeting in Reno. She was driving straight into the unknown. Ellie, 25, had been Miranda's assistant at Cole Enterprises for just 6 months, a job she'd stumbled into after a string of dead-end gigs. Miranda, 38, was everything Ellie wasn't. Poised, commanding, and intimidatingly brilliant. The CEO of a rising sustainable energy startup, Miranda had a reputation for being untouchable. Her sharp wit and sharper gaze could silence a boardroom in seconds. Yet here they were, stuck together on a 500-mile road trip because Miranda's private jet was grounded by a mechanical failure, and the Reno deal couldn't wait. The first hour was torture. Ellie kept her eyes glued to the road, hyper-aware of Miranda in the passenger seat, her navy blazer folded neatly in her lap, her perfume, something crisp, like cedar and citrus, filling the cab. "You're gripping that will like it's a lifeboat," Miranda said, her voice low, almost amused. Ellie flushed, loosening her hands. "Sorry, Miss Cole. Just focused. Call me Miranda. We're not in the office." Her tone was firm but not unkind, and Ellie's stomach did a strange flip. She nodded, stealing a glance at Miranda's profile. High cheekbones, dark hair swept into a loose ponytail, and eyes that seemed to see through everything. Ellie wondered, not for the first time, what lay beneath that polished exterior. The plan was simple. Drive from Las Vegas to Reno, hit the meeting with a major investor and fly back. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, the truck's GPS started glitching. "Piece of junk," Ellie muttered, smacking the dashboard. Miranda raised an eyebrow. "Problem? It's saying we're off course, but we're not. I know this route." Ellie's voice was confident, but doubt crept in as the road signs grew sparse. By 8 p.m. they were lost in the middle of nowhere, the highway stretching endlessly into the dark. Miranda's phone had no signal and Ellie's was dead. "Great," Miranda said, her calm fraying. "What now?" Ellie spotted a flickering neon sign in the distance. Desert Rose Motel. "We stopped there," she said, pointing. Miranda hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. Let's hope they have coffee and Wi-Fi." The motel was a relic, its pink stucco walls peeling, its sign buzzing like a dying insect. The clerk, a grizzled man with a cowboy hat, barely looked up from his magazine. "1 room left," he drawled. "1 bed. Take it or leave it." Ellie's heart stopped. She glanced at Miranda, expecting a sharp refusal, but Miranda just sighed. "We'll take it." Ellie's mouth went dry. 1 bed. With her boss. The woman she'd spent months trying not to stare at too long in meetings. The room was small, the air thick with the scent of old carpet and cheap air freshener. A single queen bed sat in the center, its faded floral bedspread mocking them. Miranda dropped her bag on the floor, her composure unshaken. "I'll take the floor," she said, already pulling out a blanket. "No way," Ellie blurted. "You're the boss. You get the bed." Miranda's lips twitched, almost a smile. "We're not playing martyr tonight, Ellie. We'll figure it out." They stood there, the tension crackling like static. Ellie's mind raced. 6 months of stolen glances, of memorizing the way Miranda's hands moved when she explained a new project, of wondering if the warmth in Miranda's rare smiles was just professional courtesy. Now they were here in a room too small for secrets. "Ellie," Miranda said, her voice softer now, "you're shaking." Ellie hadn't noticed, but her hands were trembling. She laughed nervously. "Just cold, I guess." It was a lie. The desert night was warm, and the heat in her chest had nothing to do with the weather. Miranda stepped closer, her eyes searching Ellie's face. "You don't have to be nervous around me." Her voice was steady, but there was something new in it. A vulnerability Ellie hadn't heard before. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, the hum of the motel's air conditioner fading into nothing. Ellie swallowed hard. "I'm not nervous," she said, but her voice cracked. Miranda tilted her head, studying her, and Ellie felt exposed, like every thought she'd ever had about her boss was written on her face. The silence stretched, heavy with possibility. "Let's get some rest," Miranda said finally, breaking the spell. "We've got a long day tomorrow." Ellie nodded, her heart still racing. They took turns in the tiny bathroom, changing into whatever they'd packed. Ellie in an old band tee and shorts, Miranda in a sleek silk camisole that made Ellie's breath catch. They climbed into the bed, keeping to opposite sides, the mattress creaking under their weight. Ellie stared at the ceiling, hyper-aware of Miranda's breathing, slow and steady, just inches away. Sleep felt impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Miranda's face, felt the weight of her gaze. "Ellie," Miranda whispered, so quiet Ellie almost missed it. "You awake?" "Yeah," Ellie said, her voice barely audible. Miranda turned to face her, her eyes glinting in the dark. "Tell me something about you. Something real." Ellie's heart thudded. She wasn't sure if it was the late hour, the strange intimacy of the moment, or the fact that Miranda's voice sounded like it was asking for more than just words. I grew up in a small town," she started, her voice shaky. "My mom raised me alone. We didn't have much, but she taught me to keep going no matter what." She paused, then added, "I've always been scared of not being enough." Miranda was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, "You're more than enough, Ellie. You wouldn't be here if you weren't." The words hit Ellie like a wave, warm and overwhelming. She turned to face Miranda, their faces closer now, the space between them charged with something neither could name. Ellie wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just looked at Miranda, memorizing the way the moonlight traced her features. They didn't speak again that night, but the air between them had shifted. Something had begun, fragile and unspoken, in the heart of that cramped motel room. As Ellie finally drifted to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that this road trip was about to change everything. The morning sun burned through the motel's thin curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Ellie woke to the sound of Miranda's soft breathing, her boss's arm slung carelessly across the pillow, inches from Ellie's face. For a moment Ellie just watched her, the sharp edges of Miranda's usual demeanor softened in sleep. She slipped out of bed quietly, her bare feet cold against the linoleum floor. The events of last night felt like a dream. The shared bed, Miranda's unexpected vulnerability, the way their eyes had locked in the dark. Ellie shook her head, trying to focus. They had a meeting to get to, and she couldn't afford to let her feelings, whatever they were, derail her. In the bathroom, she splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection. "Get it together, Harper," she muttered. She was just an assistant and Miranda was her boss. Nothing more. But the memory of Miranda's words, "You're more than enough," lingered warm and heavy in her chest. Miranda was awake when Ellie returned, already dressed in a crisp white shirt and slacks, her hair pulled back tightly. "Morning," she said, her tone professional but not cold. "We need to be on the road in 20 minutes. Ellie nodded, grabbing her clothes. "Got it. I'll check the truck." Outside, the desert air was already warming, the horizon shimmering with heat. The truck's GPS was still useless, but Ellie found a tattered map in the glove compartment. She spread it out on the hood, tracing their route to Reno. They were closer than she'd thought. Maybe 3 hours if they didn't hit traffic. Miranda joined her, leaning over the map. "You're good at this," she said, her voice carrying a hint of admiration. Ellie's cheeks warmed. "Just used to figuring things out on my own," she said, shrugging. The drive was quieter than the day before, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Miranda seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the passing landscape, endless stretches of sand and scrub punctuated by distant mountains. Ellie stole glances at her, wondering what was going on behind those unreadable eyes. Halfway to Reno, they stopped at a roadside diner, its neon sign proclaiming best pie in Nevada. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and bacon, and the jukebox played an old Patsy Cline song. They slid into a booth, and Ellie couldn't help but notice how Miranda's presence seemed to fill the space, drawing curious glances from the other patrons. "You ever been to a place like this?" Ellie asked, trying to break the quiet. Miranda smiled faintly. "Not since I was a kid." My dad used to take me on road trips. Diners were our thing. Ellie leaned forward, intrigued. What was he like? Miranda's smile faded slightly. He was complicated. Loved me, but he had his demons. Left when I was 12. She paused, then added, I learned early to rely on myself. Ellie nodded, understanding more than she expected. My mom was the same way. Always said we didn't need anyone else. But sometimes she trailed off, unsure how to finish. Sometimes you want someone else, Miranda said quietly, finishing the thought. Their eyes met, and for a moment the diner faded away. Ellie's pulse quickened, but before she could say anything, the waitress arrived with their food, breaking the moment. They ate in companionable silence, the clink of silverware and the hum of the jukebox filling the space. Ellie watched Miranda pick at her eggs, her movements precise, almost delicate. She wondered what it would be like to know her, really know her, not as a boss but as a person. Back on the road, the tension from the night before returned, subtle but undeniable. Ellie caught Miranda glancing at her, her expression unreadable. What? Ellie asked, half laughing. Nothing, Miranda said, but her lips curved into a small smile. You're just different than I expected. Good different or bad different? Ellie asked, her tone teasing but her heart pounding. Miranda's smile grew. Good. Definitely good. The words hung in the air, and Ellie felt a spark of hope, dangerous and thrilling. She focused on the road, trying to ignore the way her skin tingled under Miranda's gaze. They were almost to Reno now, the city's skyline faintly visible in the distance. The meeting loomed, but Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey was happening right here, in the cab of this truck. When they finally pulled into the hotel parking lot in Reno, Ellie felt a pang of disappointment. The road trip, with all its unexpected intimacy, was almost over. They checked in separate rooms this time, and Ellie felt a strange mix of relief and loss. She wanted to say something to hold on to the connection they'd started to build, but Miranda was already in work mode, her focus on the meeting. Get some rest, Miranda said as they parted ways in the hallway. Big day tomorrow. Ellie nodded, but as she watched Miranda walk away, she couldn't help but wonder what might happen if they let this, whatever this was, grow. She closed her hotel room door, her mind racing with possibilities, each one more dangerous than the last. The Reno conference room was a stark contrast to the dusty roads they'd traveled. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the air hummed with the quiet confidence of wealth and ambition. Ellie sat at Miranda's side, her notebook open, her pen poised, but her mind was elsewhere. Back in that motel room, in the diner, in the truck where the space between them had felt alive. Miranda was in her element, commanding the room with her pitch for Cole Enterprises' new solar technology. The investors, a group of stern-faced men in suits, leaned forward, hanging on her every word. Ellie marveled at her. How she could be so fierce, so brilliant, yet carry that quiet vulnerability Ellie had glimpsed the night before. Every time Miranda glanced her way, Ellie's heart skipped, though she told herself it was just nerves from the high-stakes meeting. The presentation went flawlessly, and by the end, the investors were nodding, murmuring about contracts and timelines. Miranda shook hands, her smile professional but triumphant. As they left the room, she turned to Ellie, her eyes bright. You were great in there, she said. Kept everything on track. Ellie blushed. Just doing my job. It's more than that, Miranda said, her voice low. You're good under pressure. The compliment landed like a spark, and Ellie struggled to keep her expression neutral. They celebrated that evening at a rooftop bar, the city lights sprawling below them. Miranda ordered a whiskey, neat, and Ellie stuck with a soda, feeling out of place among the sleek crowd. They found a quiet corner, and for the first time all day it was just the two of them. To a successful deal, Miranda said, raising her glass. Ellie clinked her soda against it, grinning. To not getting lost again. Miranda laughed, a rare unguarded sound that made Ellie's chest ache. They really talked for the first time. Miranda shared stories of her early days at the company, the late nights, the doubts she'd never let anyone see. Ellie opened up about her own dreams, how she'd always wanted to do something meaningful, but never knew where to start. "You're already doing it," Miranda said, her gaze steady. "You're part of something bigger now." Ellie's throat tightened. She wanted to ask what Miranda meant, if there was more to this than work, but fear held her back. Instead, she sipped her soda, letting the moment linger. The night grew late and the bar emptied out. Miranda's eyes were softer now, the whiskey loosening her usual reserve. "Ellie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "why do you stay? With the company, with me? You could do anything." Ellie froze, caught off guard. I believe in what you're doing. The work matters." And she hesitated, her heart pounding. "I like being around you." Miranda's expression shifted, a flicker of something raw passing through her eyes. For a moment, Ellie thought she might say something, but then Miranda looked away, her fingers tightening around her glass. "You're dangerous, Ellie Harper," she said, her voice teasing but laced with something deeper. "Dangerous?" Ellie laughed, trying to lighten the mood. "I'm just an assistant." Miranda shook her head. "You're more than that. You know you are." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Ellie's pulse raced, but before she could respond, Miranda stood, smoothing her blazer. "We should get back. Early flight tomorrow." The moment slipped away, and Ellie felt its loss like a physical ache. They walked back to the hotel in silence, the city's hum filling the space where words should have been. In her room, Ellie lay awake, replaying every glance, every word. She wondered if Miranda was doing the same, just a few doors down. The next morning, they met in the lobby, both acting as if nothing had changed. But something had. Ellie could feel it in the way Miranda's hand brushed hers as they passed luggage, in the way their eyes met and held a second too long. The flight home was quiet, the hum of the plane a backdrop to their unspoken thoughts. Back in Las Vegas, life resumed its rhythm, meetings, emails, deadlines. But Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that the road trip had cracked something open. She caught Miranda watching her in the office, her gaze lingering longer than necessary. Once, when Ellie handed her a file, their fingers brushed, and Miranda didn't pull away. Ellie started noticing the little things. How Miranda's voice softened when she said her name, how she'd linger after meetings to ask about Ellie's day. It was subtle, but it was there, a current running beneath their professional interactions. Ellie wanted to confront it, to ask what it meant, but fear of crossing a line kept her silent. One evening, as they worked late, Miranda broke the silence. "Ellie, do you ever think about taking risks?" Her voice was careful, her eyes fixed on the papers in front of her. Ellie's heart raced. "What kind?" Miranda looked up, her gaze piercing. "The kind that could change everything." Ellie swallowed, her mouth dry. She wanted to say yes, to tell Miranda she thought about it every time they were in the same room, but the words stuck. Instead, she nodded, hoping her eyes said what her voice couldn't. Miranda smiled, small and hesitant, and Ellie knew then that whatever was happening between them wasn't just in her head. It was real, fragile and terrifying, but real. The office felt different now, like the air itself was charged. Ellie arrived each morning with a mix of anticipation and dread, her eyes searching for Miranda in every meeting, every hallway. The road trip had changed them, peeling back layers they both kept hidden, and now Ellie couldn't unsee the woman beneath the CEO. Miranda, too, seemed different, less guarded, her smiles quicker, her glances lingering. But she was still Ellie's boss, and that line loomed large, a silent barrier neither dared to cross. Ellie threw herself into work, hoping to drown out the questions swirling in her head. What did Miranda feel? Was this just a fleeting connection or something more? One Friday, Miranda called Ellie into her office. "I need you to come with me to a client dinner tonight," she said, her tone professional but her eyes soft. "It's important." Ellie nodded, her stomach fluttering. "Of course. What's the dress code?" "Something nice," Miranda said, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You always look good, though." The compliment caught Ellie off guard, and she mumbled a thanks before fleeing to her desk, her face burning. That evening, she stood in front of her mirror, second-guessing her black dress. It was simple but fitted, and she wondered if it was too much or not enough. The dinner was at a sleek restaurant downtown, all glass and low lighting. The clients, a pair of tech moguls, were charmed by Miranda's sharp wit and vision. Ellie played her role, taking notes, chiming in when needed, but her attention kept drifting to Miranda, how her laugh lit up the table, how her hand brushed Ellie's arm when she passed her a glass. After the clients left, Miranda and Ellie stayed, the restaurant quieter now. "You were great tonight," Miranda said, sipping her wine. "You always are." Ellie's heart pounded. "Thanks. I just try to keep up with you." Miranda's eyes softened. "You do more than that, Ellie. You make things better." The words felt like a confession, and Ellie's breath caught. She wanted to ask what Miranda meant, to push past the ambiguity, but the server arrived, breaking the moment. They finished their drinks in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. Outside, the night was cool, the city alive with lights and sound. Miranda offered to drive Ellie home, and they climbed into her sleek black car. The ride was quiet, the tension building with every block. When they pulled up to Ellie's apartment, Miranda turned to her, her expression unreadable. "Ellie," she said, her voice low, "I need to ask you something." Ellie's heart stopped. "What?" Miranda hesitated, her fingers tightening on the steering wheel. "Do you ever feel like there's something you can't say? Something that could change everything?" Ellie's pulse raced. She knew exactly what Miranda meant because she felt it too, the pull, the fear, the longing. "Yeah," she whispered. "All the time." For a moment they just looked at each other, the space between them electric. Ellie wanted to lean in to close the distance, but fear held her back. Miranda's hand twitched like she might reach out, but then she looked away, her jaw tight. "Good night, Ellie," she said, her voice strained. "Good night," Ellie replied, her chest aching as she stepped out of the car. She watched Miranda drive away, feeling like she just let something slip through her fingers. The next week was torture. Miranda was distant, her professional mask firmly in place. Ellie wondered if she'd misread everything, if the road trip and the dinner had been in her head. She buried herself in work, but the hurt lingered, sharp and persistent. Then late one evening Miranda appeared at Ellie's desk. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice urgent. Ellie followed her to the office's rooftop terrace, the city sprawling below them. Miranda paced, her usual composure gone. "I've been trying to keep this professional," she said, her voice raw. "But I can't stop thinking about you." Ellie's breath caught. "Miranda." "I know it's complicated," Miranda continued, her eyes searching Ellie's. "I'm your boss. There's a power dynamic, expectations, risks. But I feel something, Ellie. And I think you do too." Ellie's heart soared, but fear clawed at her. "I do," she admitted, her voice shaking. "But what if it ruins everything?" Miranda stepped closer, her gaze intense. "What if it doesn't?" The question hung between them, a challenge and a promise. Ellie's mind raced, her job, her future, the risk of heartbreak. But looking into Miranda's eyes, she saw something worth fighting for. She took a step forward, closing the gap, their faces inches apart. "I'm scared," Ellie whispered. "So am I," Miranda said, her voice barely audible. "But I don't want to run from this." Ellie's resolve broke. She reached out, her hand brushing Miranda's, and the contact sent a jolt through her. They stood there, hands touching, the city lights blurring around them. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was a beginning, a promise of something neither could ignore. The rooftop moment lingered in Ellie's mind like a song she couldn't stop humming. She and Miranda hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed that final line, but the air between them had shifted irrevocably. Every glance, every brush of their hands in the office, felt like a secret they were both keeping. They tried to maintain professionalism, but it was a fragile facade. Ellie caught Miranda watching her during meetings, her eyes lingering a beat too long. Once, when Ellie handed her a coffee, their fingers brushed, and Miranda's smile was so soft, so private, that Ellie's heart ached. They were dancing around something inevitable, and the tension was unbearable. One evening Miranda asked Ellie to stay late to review a new project. The office was empty, the hum of the city filtering through the windows. They sat close at Miranda's desk, their shoulders nearly touching as they pored over spreadsheets. Ellie could feel the heat of Miranda's arm, the faint scent of her perfume. It was distracting, intoxicating. "Ellie," Miranda said suddenly, her voice low, "we need to talk about this." Ellie's stomach dropped. "About what?" Miranda turned to face her, her eyes intense. "About us. About what's happening. I can't keep pretending it's just work." Ellie's heart raced. She'd dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, fear mingled with her longing. "What are we doing, Miranda? You're my boss. This goes wrong." "I know," Miranda said, her voice tight. "I've thought about it, every risk, every consequence. But I've also thought about what it feels like when I'm with you. Like I'm alive in a way I haven't been in years." Ellie's breath caught. She wanted to say she felt the same, that Miranda made her feel seen, valued, wanted. But the words stuck, tangled in her fear of the unknown. Instead, she reached out, her hand finding Miranda's. The contact was electric, grounding them both. "I'm scared," Ellie admitted, echoing their rooftop confession. "But I want this. I want you." Miranda's eyes softened, and she squeezed Ellie's hand. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." They didn't kiss that night, but they didn't need to. The promise was enough, a fragile thread tying them together. They stayed late talking not about work but about themselves. Miranda shared stories of her childhood, her dreams before the corporate world claimed her. Ellie talked about her fears, her hopes, the way she'd always felt like she was searching for something she couldn't name. The next few weeks were a delicate balance. They stole moments when they could, a quiet coffee break, a late-night walk after a long day. But the office was a minefield, full of curious eyes and unspoken rules. Ellie noticed the whispers, the way colleagues watched them a little too closely. She wondered if they could see it, the way her heart raced when Miranda smiled, the way Miranda's voice softened when she said Ellie's name. One afternoon, a coworker, Sarah, cornered Ellie in the break room. "So you and Miranda," she said, her tone teasing but pointed. "What's going on there?" Ellie's face burned. "Nothing's going on. We're just working closely." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Sure. Just be careful, okay? Office romances are messy." The warning stuck with Ellie, feeding her doubts. She wanted to believe she and Miranda could navigate this, but the risks were real. Her job, Miranda's reputation, the fragile trust they'd built. That night, she went to Miranda's office, her heart heavy. "We need to be careful," Ellie said, her voice low. "People are starting to talk." Miranda's jaw tightened. "Let them talk. I don't care." "I do," Ellie said, her voice breaking. "This is my career, Miranda. And it's your company. If this goes wrong, it's not just us who get hurt." Miranda's expression softened, and she stepped closer, her hand brushing Ellie's arm. "I won't let that happen. I promise." Ellie wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered. They were playing with fire, and the flames were getting closer. Still, when Miranda looked at her like that, like she was the only person in the world, Ellie couldn't walk away. Their first kiss came a week later, unexpected and perfect. They were in Miranda's car, parked outside Ellie's apartment after another late night. The radio played softly, a slow jazz tune filling the silence. Miranda reached for Ellie's hand, her thumb tracing circles on her skin. "Ellie," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can't keep pretending I don't want this." Ellie's heart pounded. She leaned in, closing the distance, and their lips met, soft, tentative, then deepening with a hunger that took Ellie's breath away. It was everything she'd imagined and more, a collision of want and fear and hope. When they pulled apart, Miranda's eyes were bright, her breath uneven. "Was that okay?" she asked, a rare uncertainty in her voice. Ellie laughed, breathless. "More than okay." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring the moment. The world outside the car faded away, and for the first time, Ellie felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The kiss changed everything. Ellie walked into the office the next day feeling like the world had shifted, like every color was brighter, every sound sharper. She caught Miranda's eye across the room, and the secret smile they shared felt like a lifeline. But the world didn't stop for them. The office buzzed with deadlines, and the whispers about their closeness grew louder. Ellie tried to ignore them, focusing on her work, but the weight of scrutiny was heavy. She wondered how long they could keep this, whatever it was, a secret. Miranda, too, seemed to feel the pressure. She was as brilliant as ever in meetings, but Ellie noticed the tension in her jaw, the way her smiles didn't always reach her eyes. One evening, as they left the office together, Miranda's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it, her face darkening. "What's wrong?" Ellie asked, her stomach twisting. Miranda hesitated, then showed her the screen. It was an email from HR, requesting a meeting to discuss professional conduct. Ellie's heart sank. "They know," she whispered. "They suspect," Miranda corrected, her voice steady but strained. "We haven't done anything wrong, Ellie, but we need to be careful." The meeting with HR was tense. The director, a stern woman named Linda, questioned them about their working relationship, her tone neutral but probing. Ellie felt exposed. Her every word weighed for hidden meaning. Miranda was calm, deflecting with her usual confidence, but Ellie could see the worry in her eyes. Afterward, Miranda pulled Ellie aside. "We need to talk," she said, her voice urgent. They went to a quiet cafe, far from the office's prying eyes. Miranda leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "I won't let this ruin you," she said. "If it comes to it, I'll step down." Ellie's eyes widened. "You can't do that. The company is everything to you." Miranda's gaze softened. "Not everything. Not anymore." The words hit Ellie like a wave, warm and overwhelming. She reached for Miranda's hand, squeezing it tightly. "We'll figure this out," she said, echoing Miranda's words from weeks before. Together. They decided to keep their distance at work, limiting their interactions to what was strictly necessary. It was torture for Ellie, who craved Miranda's presence, her touch, her voice. But they stole moments when they could: late-night texts, quiet dinners at Miranda's apartment, stolen kisses in the shadows of parking lots. One night at Miranda's place, Ellie found herself opening up in a way she never had. They lay on the couch, a movie playing in the background, their hands intertwined. "I've never felt like this before," Ellie admitted, her voice soft. "Like I could be myself completely." Miranda turned to her, her eyes bright. "You have no idea how much that means to me," she said. "I've spent so long building walls, keeping people out, but with you I don't want to hide." They kissed slow and deep, the world falling away. Ellie felt like she was falling too, but for the first time she wasn't afraid. She knew Miranda would catch her. But the outside world wasn't so kind. The rumors grew, fueled by colleagues who noticed their closeness, their lingering glances. One morning, Ellie found an anonymous note on her desk. "Be careful who you trust." Her stomach churned, but she didn't tell Miranda, not wanting to add to her stress. The breaking point came a week later. An article appeared in a local business journal, hinting at inappropriate conduct at Cole Enterprises. It didn't name names, but the implications were clear. Ellie felt sick, her worst fears realized. She went to Miranda's office, her hands shaking. "We need to stop," she said, her voice breaking. "This is going to destroy everything." Miranda's face fell, but she didn't argue. "If that's what you want," she said, her voice hollow. "It's not what I want," Ellie said, tears stinging her eyes. "It's what we have to do." They parted ways that night, the air heavy with unspoken words. Ellie went home, curling up on her couch, the weight of her decision crushing her. She loved Miranda, loved her in a way she'd never thought possible, but the risks were too great, the cost too high. For the next few days they avoided each other, their interactions cold and formal. Ellie threw herself into work, but the joy was gone. She missed Miranda's laugh, her touch, the way she made Ellie feel like she could do anything. She wondered if she'd made the wrong choice, if love was worth fighting for, even if it meant losing everything else. Ellie's apartment felt emptier than ever, the silence deafening without Miranda's voice to fill it. She went through the motions, work, home, sleep, but her heart wasn't in it. Every time she saw Miranda in the office, her chest ached, the distance between them a physical pain. Miranda, too, seemed diminished, her usual fire dimmed. She was still brilliant, still commanding, but Ellie could see the strain in her eyes, the way her smiles never quite reached them. They were both hurting, but neither knew how to bridge the gap. One evening Ellie couldn't take it anymore. She drove to Miranda's apartment, her heart pounding as she knocked on the door. When Miranda opened it, her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and hope in her expression. "I was wrong," Ellie said, her voice trembling. "I thought pushing you away would protect us, but it's killing me. I love you, Miranda. I don't care about the risks. I just want you." Miranda's eyes filled with tears, and she pulled Ellie inside, closing the door behind them. "I love you too," she said, her voice breaking. "I've been miserable without you." They kissed, desperate and hungry, like they were making up for lost time. It was different from before, deeper, more certain. They'd faced the worst and come out stronger, their love a quiet rebellion against the world's judgment. The next day, Miranda called a company meeting. Standing before her employees, she was every inch the CEO. But her voice held a new resolve. "There's been talk," she said, her gaze steady, "about my personal life, about choices I've made. I won't hide who I am. I'm in love with someone extraordinary, and I'm not ashamed of that." Ellie's heart swelled as Miranda's eyes found hers, a silent promise in her gaze. The room was quiet, some faces shocked, others nodding in quiet support. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that was enough. They faced challenges in the weeks that followed, whispers, skepticism, even a few lost clients. But Miranda's leadership held the company together, and Ellie found her own strength, standing by Miranda's side. They built a life together, not just as boss and assistant, but as partners, equals, lovers. One evening, months later, they returned to the Desert Rose Motel, a playful nod to where it all began. The same clerk was there, still reading his magazine. "One room?" he asked, not looking up. "One bed," Miranda said, grinning at Ellie. They laughed, the sound carrying into the desert night. The room was just as small, just as faded, but it felt like home. They lay together, their hands intertwined, the future stretching out before them, uncertain but theirs. As they drifted to sleep, Ellie thought about the road that had brought them here, the detours, the risks, the moments of doubt. It hadn't been easy, but it was worth it. Love, she realized, wasn't just about finding someone. It was about choosing them again and again, no matter what the world threw at you. And in that cramped motel room, with Miranda's heartbeat steady against her own, Ellie knew she'd choose her every time.